Well, hello everybody, it is Dan, your friendly fishmonger from dansfish.com, and today we're finally going to do a video on these, ta-da! Angelfish, Pterophyllum scalari, I don't know, I call them scalare. The angelfish that's common in the hobby, mine are the platinum variety, and the ones behind me here, these guys are now about silver dollar size, $half size, in that range. When I first got them, they were little dime-sized guys, and so we're going to take a blast from the past, and I'm going to show you some video from when they were little dime-sized guys, and talk about this species. Woo! Okay, that was the sound of the time machine, which has taken us back to when I first got these guys. I think I took this video back in December. It is now late April. And when I got them, they were little dime size, maybe even smaller than that. Their fins were not fully developed, as you can see, when you compare them to the adults that you saw at the beginning of the video. Now they're a lot bigger, have a lot more fins, and they've started to develop kind of that blue that they get in the dorsal fin and the anal fin. I love these guys. I first bred angels. It was a black marble with a gold, I remember, that I got from a pet shop. I was a kid. I got them. I wasn't planning on spawning them, but one day I went and they had spawned and I was able to raise the babies, and I remember trading the babies back for flats of brine shrimp to a local pet store. So that was kind of my introduction to angelfish. Now these guys have been in the hobby forever. They were one of the most popular ones early on to catch on because they're so beautiful, and since then they've bred all kinds of color variants. I won't go over a list of all the colors. You can look them up and see all different kinds, but these that we're showing you are the platinums. I really like the platinums. The reason is because they're a bright white fish that has, they aren't translucent though, like maybe an albino. They have a bright, shiny finish to them, almost like white chrome, like white gold, right? Hence the name. And one of the reasons I like them so much is because most of my tanks are pretty bare and are painted black, and so this color just absolutely pops against a dark background. It pops against the blue background as well. So that's why I like this color species, or this color variant of the species. Now, angelfish, when they were first brought in, they were super delicate. They were hard to keep alive, kind of like the Altum angels are now. But now they've been bred in captivity for so many years, so many generations, that they're kind of tough. They are tough fish. They can live in soft water and hard water. They can take all kinds of different water parameters. They don't like it toxic. They don't want ammonia, they don't want nitrite in there, and things like that. But even then, they've been bred so much that they're a little more tolerant to that than, say, a wild type angelfish would be. But keep the water clean and they'll be in pretty good shape. I keep mine in the mid-70s, about 75 degrees, which is on the lower end of where you keep angelfish. Mid-70s to mid-80s is a good range for them. The reason I keep them at the lower temperature is I'm not trying to breed them. I'm not trying to grow them up super fast or anything like that. And I don't want all the aggression that comes with the higher temperatures. So let's talk about aggression. So angelfish are fairly peaceful compared to other cichlids. They are a cichlid though. And because of that, you can get some aggression issues, especially and usually when a pair decides to spawn. So if you keep the angelfish at a higher temperature, they condition to spawn more frequently, more readily, and then you'll start seeing some aggression. So a pair will basically claim a territory and try to keep all the other angelfish out of that territory. So they're not aggressive like cichlids, but you do need to be aware, like most cichlids, that they are a cichlid, and when they pair up, there can be some aggression. If you had 3, for example, and 2 paired off, then that third one would probably need to be removed because it would constantly get harassed and things like that. So a pair is not a problem in a tank by themselves. They usually do just fine, or a larger group is a good idea. And unfortunately, they're super hard to sex, so you can't really say, hey, I don't want to get pair aggression, so I'm going to get all males or I'm going to get all females, because you don't really know what the sex is until they spawn for you. You can kind of tell by behavior, you can guess, but besides that, you kind of have to see them spawning to know exactly what you have, or look at their genitalia as they're spawning. But besides that, you kind of don't know. I have them under a blue light and a tinic light for this part of the video. In a little while, we'll switch the light to a normal white spectrum light, and you can see the difference. But I think that this is a fish that looks really, really cool under an actinic light. I wouldn't keep them under that all the time. I like just, normal white light. It promotes plant growth and kind of gives them a more natural look. But every now and then, I like to throw on an actinic and see them kind of shine blue like in moonlight. It's really cool. So let's switch to another view here in just a second. Okay, here we go. So this is still the actinic light, but this is more up close and personal. Actually, it's half actinic, half white. So these guys, they eat everything. Again, they've been domesticated for a long time, so they're not hard to feed at all. They will eat flake food, they'll eat pellets, they'll eat frozen foods, they'll eat live foods, they'll eat gel foods. A nice mix of food is great for them. In the wild, they tend to eat little animals that are clinging to the surfaces of rocks and plants and driftwood and things like that. Most fish that are laterally compressed like this, like these angelfish and discus and other fish like that, live in some pretty cramped conditions where not like a ton of fish per body of water, but in conditions where the environment is cramped with like plants or lots of pieces of wood sticking in, things like that. And so they've kind of developed this lateral compression so they can zip in and out in between these tight spaces that exist in those environments. So that's one reason that they've developed that lateral compression. And what that does is it just makes them so beautiful, because then they have this nice long viewing pane, if you will, that we can look at them on their sides and see all their beauty. So they make a great aquarium fish. Laterally compressed fish are just stunning in the aquarium. Now they can get taller than they are long when they're full grown. From the top of the dorsal to the bottom of the anal fin, you could be looking on a big one at about 8 inches or so. They can get, and that's not an avail species, or a veil variant, that's just the normal finnage. So they can get a little big on you. So keep that in mind when you're picking out an aquarium for these guys. Now, smaller pairs, I have seen them bred in 10-gallon aquariums, but I don't think that's a long-term solution. A fish that is this tall from the bottom of the anal fin to the top of the dorsal fin needs a fairly high aquarium. So for a pair long-term, I prefer a 20 high. And for a group, I like a 75-gallon, a 55-gallon you could get a group in as well. But just keep in mind that they're a pretty tall fish, and you don't want that anal fin dragging on the bottom of the aquarium a bunch, because then it can get infected, it can get scraped up. You want to give them plenty of room. Now that being said, they are perfectly fine grazing on the bottom of an aquarium, and the bottom to the middle of the water column is where they tend to hang out in the wild as well. So, I understand that their anal fin's going to touch the bottom, but you want to give them the option to get up and get away from the dirt down there. Let's look at them now without the actinic light. This is just a normal old white LED shop light that we're looking at them under. And they still look stunning. They're just a gorgeous fish. They're not an extremely fast swimmer, which is nice. You can keep them with other fish that aren't zipping around a ton, and they'll make a pretty good tank mate with them. You do want to be careful, though, keeping them with any really, really, really fast or food-aggressive fish, like barbs, for example. If I had, say, a few of these with a large group of clown barbs, I have a feeling that the clown barbs would just outcompete them for the food in a massive way. So you'd have to be really careful to make sure that the angelfish would be getting enough food. So be careful who you put them with. If you put them with really, really quick species like barbs, then you'll need to have some kind of strategy on how to get enough food to the angelfish, and you might end up needing to overfeed quite a bit, which is fine as long as you're willing to keep up on the water changes to make sure that the tank stays clean while you're doing that, right? Now, let's see here. So we've talked about water conditions, which they'll take anything. We've talked about temperature. Mine are in the mid-70s. You can keep them up to the mid-80s. Higher temperatures, you need better oxygen saturation, so make sure you have good aeration on there. They don't like a lot of current in the water, but they like some movement. So don't have a ton of movement in there, but make sure that the water isn't stagnant. I just have a box filter and a sponge filter, and they do fine with that. As far as breeding these guys, in my experience, it's always been very, very simple. If you want to breed them, I think the best way to do it is either by a proven pair, but you have to be a little careful about that because if you buy a proven pair, they might... Oh geez, how far do I want to go into this? Let's just say that there are some people out there which will sell large angelfish as a pair even if they aren't. But if you have a source you trust, you can buy a proven pair that's already spawned. Oh, the other reason is because sometimes two females will spawn together and you think it's a pair, but it's actually just two females. So unless you see really carefully who's doing what, you can't be quite sure. But if you get a group of 6 to 8 young ones and raise them up together, then eventually a pair or two will form, and you can then select those and use those as breeders. Now, they breed basically on a hard surface. They can do it on like a rigid leaf like an Anubias leaf or a sword plant leaf or something like that, but it's so easy to use like a piece of tile. If you take a piece of tile that's about 4 inches wide and 12 inches long and lean it at a 45-degree angle up against the aquarium and just make sure it can't slip down the aquarium, then they'll lay their eggs on that. And then you have an option. You can let them raise their babies themselves. However, they've been bred so much that a lot of them don't have a strong parental instinct, so you might get them eating their eggs or their babies, at least for the first few times. But it's really cool to watch them raise the babies. So if you have the patience, you can let them do that. If you want to raise a bunch of babies, then you pull out that piece of tile and you can incubate them artificially in a separate body of water. You just keep air flowing over them so that they don't get stagnant, and you keep the water really clean. And that's about it. All right, I hope you liked that species profile on these guys. Oops, wrong thumb. These guys, angelfish, Pterophyllum scalaire. Awesome fish, been in the hobby for a long time, and I think the platinums might be my favorite color. They come in all kinds of colors as we talked about. But anyway, hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments about this species, please post them down down below, and we can get a discussion going and geek out a little bit on angelfish. All right, till next time, have a good one.